guys, welcome back to another episode of Kitchen Chaos with Jackie. I hope you all are doing well today. So thank you for joining me in the kitchen again. Tonight we are going to be making one of my favorites, breakfast for dinner. So I'm not a huge fan of breakfast foods, especially not in the morning because I just don't normally eat in the mornings, but I do love them for dinner. So tonight we are going to be making a different version of corned beef hash. Now earlier when I had first started filming, I had filmed how I have been doing corned beef hash, and that is where I just take the corned beef and I chop it up with some vegetables fried in the skillet. But as you may know, if you've watched some of these videos, is I love the Food Network. I grew up on the Food Network. Well, I didn't grow up on it, but I've been watching it since I was a young adult. It's really where I learned how to cook, how flavors go together. Like, I just love it. And I'm still to this day addicted to it, although not quite the same way as I used to be. One of the big things I really like to watch is Triple D, Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Also Triple G, Guys Grocery Games. But anyways, I was watching an episode of Triple D, and they had a diner on there where they were making corned beef hash. And they did it in a way that I never thought of. I've never seen it this way. They put it through a meat grinder. So it looked like you would get more of the texture that you would like the one in the can. Now, some of you may be like, oh, stuff in the can, it's terrible. It looks like dog food. It does, but it's delicious. It's one of my guilty favorites that I used to get maybe once every 3 or 4 months. I'd buy a can of it, bring it home, I'd fry it up in the skillet so it'd get nice and crispy on the bottom, and then it would be nice and tender on the inside. So don't judge. I love it. Anyways, I can't eat that anymore because it's full of potatoes. So what's a girl gonna do? I have passed by the cans in the store though, let me just tell you. Oh, and some corned beef hash. No, I won't do it. So we're gonna attempt to make another version tonight. Again, you're coming along for the ride while we experiment. I swear if it comes out terrible, you're never going to see this, but I'll have it to make notes for the next time I try to make it. All right, so I'm going to be doing the corned beef in the oven, so come along and I'm going to show you how I'm going to get that started. Now, this is going to be a bit of a process because the corned beef is going to have to bake for about 3 hours. We're going to let it cool, then we're going to cut it up, and we're going to put it into our meat grinder, okay? All right, come on, I'm excited. All right, gang, so we're at the oven. I have my big baking pan here with a piece of foil, and this is the corned beef flat cut brisket that we're going to be using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse it off, and then I'm going to put some Dijon mustard, so I have some Grey Poupon. So I'm going to put that on, and then we're going to sprinkle the pickling spice on, put that into the foil, cover it, and then we're going to bake it at 350. Okay, so I rinsed off my corned beef, and then I just patted it dry, and I don't have a lot of mustard in here, so I'm just going to take my spatula. I'm going to double dip just because I know I'm going to use all of this. So, if you don't, one of the tricks that I use, the oven's ready. One of the tricks that I use whenever I'm going to be using like mustard or something to, like with this, I would take a little bit of mustard out, put it in a little container, and then that way I don't have to worry about contaminating anything. So we're just going to cover this, like I said, with the Dijon. Use whatever mustard you like, or if you don't like mustard, you don't have to do this. Or if you have your favorite way to bake your corned beef, go for it. I just thought I didn't know how to bake it. I used to always just do it in the crock pot. And then I decided that, I really kind of wanted to try something different. I wasn't so keen on the texture of it. And so I found this recipe, and this is the one that I have been using pretty much ever since, although sometimes I still do it in the crock pot, like when I'm doing it with cabbage and such. All right, so we have it covered with our Dijon, and then we're going to take our pickling spice that came with it, and we're just going to sprinkle that here on the top. La, la, la. Be careful when you open it. Don't be like me. Some of it went flying across the room. I'm going to have to run the vacuum so the dogs don't end up eating that. Okay, and then I'm probably going to have to do 2 pieces of foil because it's a pretty big one, but we're just going to wrap this booger up so it'll keep all of the steam inside and make it really nice and tender. So what it is we're baking it at 350, and it's 1 hour per pound. So this brisket is about just a little over 3 pounds. So we're going to cook it for 3 hours. Then I'll take it out of the oven, show you what it looks like. I'm going to cut it up, and then that and onion are going to go through the food grinder that I have. Now, I'm also assuming that you could do this in a food processor. Again, I just never thought to do it this way, so we're just experimenting. So if you don't have a food grinder, you want to try doing this, try putting it in the food processor. processor and see what happens. All right, guys, I'm going to get this wrapped up. We're going to put it in the oven. All right, gang, so our corned beef is finally done. I had a small oven mishap. My oven stopped working about halfway through the cooking time. I didn't actually realize it did that, so thankfully I have a toaster oven, and so I popped it in there. So, but that's what it looks like. We're going to take it out, and then I'm going to cut it into chunks so that I can put it through the feed chute in the grinder. All right, gang, so I have cubed up the corned beef. I also cut half of a yellow onion that I had in the fridge, and we're going to be putting that through our meat grinder. Now, I'm not going to run this while you're listening because you don't need to hear that. And like I said, if you don't have a meat grinder, I'm thinking this would work really well in a food processor. Well, guys, let me tell you, that was a workout. That was a lot of fun, though. I'm really excited. Look, it came out so nice. I know it sounds terrible, but it doesn't look like the stuff that's in the can, but so much better because it's fresh. All right, so yeah, that's all there is to it. It's like, oh, it's raining meat. So I put, like I said, that half of an onion in there. I also had just a tiny little bit of yellow bell pepper. So I went ahead and threw that in there too, because some of the recipes I looked at, and when I make it, when I just chop it up, I also put bell peppers in. So that's going to be our meat mixture, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in the fridge to kind of let it congeal together a little bit. Then we're going to throw it in a pan and fry it up. All right, guys, we are off to the races. I have my pan heating on medium low. We're going to add about a teaspoon of butter to the pan. Boop. I'm going to let that get all melty in there. And then I have my lovely corned beef mixture. Now, I did taste it because, of course, it is cooked. And it needed a little bit of oompa. So I threw a little bit of that Sazon seasoning that I like to use. I'll show it to you again. And a little bit of garlic powder and a little bit of onion powder. I gave that a good stir, and that tasted delicious. So we got some sizzling butter here. So I figure I'm just going to try to do this in small batches, just to hopefully get a nice crisp on it. I'm hoping to be able to get it like I do whenever I would cook the canned hash. I would always put it in just a tiny little bit of butter because it already has a lot of fat in it. But then I would just kind of let it go so it would develop that nice crispy crust. So that's what our goal is here. So it's kind of loose, so be careful. I just got my spoon here. I'm just going to throw it into the pan. I'm so excited for this. I really hope this turns out as well as I think it will. And that you guys will get a chance to try this if you're like a huge fan of corned beef hash like I am. Like I said, don't judge me for liking the stuff in the can. I can't help it. I don't think I told you how I started my love affair with corned beef hash was way back in the day. Like I was in my early 20s. I was living in Maryland, and I was out with friends. I'm pretty sure we were out dancing and probably drinking and all that fun stuff. And we stopped in a diner on the way home. And I liked corned beef hash. I wasn't like a super huge fan at that point. But I got it at this diner, and I'll never forget. It was so delicious. It was fatty and crispy, and it was just, I don't know, it was to die for. I've never forgotten it, and I forget a lot of things, but I think that's where it stems why I always enjoyed the can, because I never knew how to make it myself. So, so here we are many years later, and guys, it looks like corned beef hash. Now, of course, there's no potatoes in it, and that's okay. Like I said, we have a little bit of onion and a little bit of pepper. So I'm going to let this go. I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit because I don't want to burn it. I just want to, like I said, develop that nice crust. So we're going to let that go for just a minute. Okay, so I flipped it over, and if you can see, it does have a nice little brown on it. Now be careful, it's spitting at me a little bit. So I did turn the heat down a little bit more, so we're now down more to the low point. I'm thinking when I do the second batch, I might actually add a little bit more butter. It's a little bit dry, which I'm kind of surprised. I left the fat on it whenever I ground it, but the piece of corned beef that I had wasn't like super fatty. So I'm just going to go ahead. Normally I'd be able to like flip it because it would all stick together. Again, this one's not, but that's okay. I think the flavor is really going to be there. So it's going to have some little crispy pieces, and I think that is going to be reminiscent for me. All right, guys, and there we have our corned beef hash. So I'm going to make up the next batch for George and I. This will be for the boys. We're going to let that cool for a minute, and then I'll give it a taste test for you. Hey kids, I'm just popping in real quick. It's a couple of days later from when I filmed this original video, but there was a couple of things I wanted to let you know. I'm trying to shut out that glare that's right there. Okay, so in the video I tell you it's a little bit dry, although delicious. So the next day what I did, as I had saved the juice from the corned beef when I cooked it in the oven, even though it didn't cook in there all the way and I had to transfer it, I had saved that. So there was probably a little over a cup of liquid and just a little bit of fat on top. So I dumped that into that bowl that I had the corned beef in, gave that a good stir, and then I decided to make a little bit for lunch just to try it and see, and it did help with the moisture. So I just kind of wanted to let you know that I was eating it and it was really good, but I was like, oh, it's just a little bit more dry than I wanted to, and I didn't necessarily want to add a bunch more fat to it. Not that I'm opposed to fat, but I don't know, it's just something in my head. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know that little secret. Okay, so I'm gonna taste it for you. You're gonna see in a second, okay? All right, bye. All right, guys, dinner is done. We are ready to eat. So I just wanted to show you. So we have our sunny side up egg and our corned beef hash. I'm so excited to try this. All right, here we go. The things I do for you. That's really good. It's very reminiscent of what I had in my head. Like I said, I think when I did the second batch, I added just a little bit more butter, probably almost a tablespoon, which served out 2 portions for me and George. And I think that helped because it's a little bit dry. Again, it didn't have a whole lot of fat on that particular corned beef. So just kind of use your best judgment. So guys, I always thank you for watching. I appreciate it so much. I hope you will be inspired to try something yourself. If you have a grinder that maybe it's hanging out in your basement, you haven't used it for a while, there's something you can try. Like I said, otherwise I think it would be really good if you just cut it up into small cubes and maybe pulsed it in the food processor. I can't see why that wouldn't work. I've done that with raw meat in which to make hamburgers. So let me know if you try this and how it goes. Otherwise, have a great night. Thank you again for watching, for supporting me. I appreciate it so much. Take care of yourselves. Peace. Love you.